Hello again, everybody. Today, I want to talk to you about two things that are very near and dear to my heart. They are the hamburger and the hot dog, two of our most famous American foods. And they were started right here in the Low Country, according to some legends. A few observations about these delicious items. They don't really look alike on the surface. And yet, I remember one time, is a true story, when I was in college and I wanted a hamburger, but I only had hot dog buns. And so I didn't know how to put the two together because I didn't have any hot dogs. I only had hamburger meat. So I decided to fashion the hamburger meat into the shape of hot dogs, and I put that ground beefy thing, on a hot dog bun, put ketchup and mustard on it, and then there you go. I call it the ham dog. And I told people about it, and the reaction, every time I would tell people about it, the reaction was always the same. They would always say something like, ew. That is a reaction I do not understand, because a ham dog is just a hamburger in a slightly different shape. What difference does it make? Why would it be? I could understand your reaction being, well, that's odd, or weird, or peculiar, or that could take some getting used to, or I don't think I would care for it in that shape. But ew is not an appropriate response for that. It'd be like if I gave you a bowl of cereal in a square bowl. Ew! Get these heinous oats off of my table. How could anyone, under any circumstances, agree to eat these vile toasties? I don't understand that. But you know what? There's a lot of things I don't understand. But the things I do understand are amazing and wonderful things. The thing about, there is this, I don't necessarily want to weigh in on this, but there is this controversy over whether a hot dog is a sandwich or not. I know a hamburger is a sandwich because my dad always called it a sandwich. I thought it was odd. He would say, like, hey, let's go down to Burger King and get us a sandwich. And he was from the country, so he would put the emphasis on the which instead of the sand, which was unusual. Let's go get us a sandwich. Or maybe put it on the sand instead of the which. But whatever way he did it, it was very funny. And I would be like, we're going to the Burger King to get like peanut butter and jelly? I don't understand what we're doing at Burger King doing that. And then we would get there, and it took me a few years to figure out he meant a hamburger, because it was two pieces of bread with some meat on it. That's what he called a sandwich. He didn't call it a hamburger, he called it a sandwich. Some people wonder if a hot dog is a sandwich because it's bread and it's meat. And some people say, no, it's not a sandwich, it is a hot dog. I think my decision is the best. I don't call it a sandwich. I call it did you know that the hot dog is made in America? It was made at a World's Fair. And when you think about it, it's just like a pouch of bready thing with meat in it. So I call it an American taco, because I think the tacos were invented long before the hot dogs were. So sometimes I'll say that, like, hey, coming to the cookout, you're going to get some American tacos. And people's response is always, ew, which is also not an appropriate response. Hot dogs at cookouts are, when I was a kid, they would always lure me to the cookout with the promise of hot dogs, even though the adults were eating things I had no interest in. I'm not into ribs. They'd be like, going to a cookout, they're going to make ribs. I don't know. I mean, it's a rib cage of an animal. And when I look at it, I'm like, that's the animal's rib cage. Like, all those organs were behind that. It's just not, I don't know. It's a weird vibe to me. Or they would have an oyster roast. They'd be like, we're going to have an oyster roast. And I would be like, that's disgusting. Oysters are like globs of mucus on mother of pearl. Why are we doing this? But they would say, like, there's going to be hot dogs too. And I would be like, ooh, hot dogs. American tacos. And then you'd get there, and as I grew up, I realized what an afterthought those hot dogs were. It was pretty clear that the guys grilling did not care about the hot dogs. They just threw them on there. Whatever, here's the kid stuff. They'd put them on the corner. they'd have the big rack of ribs there, or the hamburger. The hot dogs would be in the corner. They kind of roll them around every now and again, forget about them. They'd whisk out a plate full of them. They'd be charred black completely, like giant long lumps of coal. They were kind of like that runt pencil you have in your pencil pouch. It's like the eraser was bit off of it. You're never going to use it. But just in case somebody asks you to borrow a pencil, you're like, I guess you can have this one. That's kind of what hot dogs are at the cookout. It is odd that this is a hamburger, or if you're my dad, a sandwich. But this has a lot of names. We call it a hot dog around here. But I've heard people refer to it as weenie. We're going to a weenie roast. We're going to roast some weenies, which is a fun way to say it if you're a kid. Weenie. Some people call it a wiener. When did it be called? Which was first, the wiener or the weenie? I don't know. We should look it up in the Oxford English Dictionary to find out. Weenie or wiener. And then on some bizarre planet, and I've never heard anyone actually refer to this in person, but I've read about it, people will call these frankfurters. I don't know what that is. Frankfurters. It's kind of an uppity version. Like, we have hot dogs? We have weenies? No, we are having frankfurters. If you don't like it, you can have the rib cage of a massive animal. But now the one time you do hear it kind of referred to frankfurters, kind of, is if you mix it with beans. And I guess, I don't know who mixed it with beans first, but they must have called it like, hey, we're gonna have some beans and frankfurters. And that was a little long in the mouth to say. So somebody gradually got it down to beans and franks. And eventually someone said, like, look, I ain't calling this a frank. It's just pork. So now it's just pork and beans. It'd be interesting to trace the evolution of that. The last thing I want to say about these things, because you're probably already turned off by now, because you're like, this is a lot about hamburgers and hot dogs. But the last thing I want to say about the hot dog, you might have thought during this whole pandemic, what amazement there is over how scientifically developed we are. Like, we are getting ready to have a vaccine for this thing in a record amount of time. We can identify, we can look at a virus under a microscope. It is crazy how amazing our country has been at inventing things. And I admire all those people. That is the amazing thing about America. We are so smart, and we have been able to do things that are so smart. You can't even figure them out. I don't even know. How do we put a man on the moon? How did that happen? How do we get stereo? How does that happen? How does Beyonce sing in a studio somewhere and it goes through the sky into some chords, into my ear? That is crazy. But the most amazing thing to me is the hot dog bun. Sometimes I'll just sit and ponder, like, how did this even happen? How did Edison come up with this thing? Go to the store and buy a package of hot dog buns. And it is the most incredible thing. I don't even know how this is done. Okay, so obviously they had to bake them. You pull out a hot dog bun. It is not a sack full of 10 hot dog buns. It is a sack full of one giant hot dog bun with 10 little kind of molded little hot dog buns attached to each other. And you think, this is interesting. Then you peel apart one of the buns, and inside the bun that you have peeled apart, it is sliced. How did they bake a sliced attack hot dog bun? How is this even done? Is that not the most amazing thing that you have ever heard of? That is crazy. I'm sorry, I can't sit down when I talk about it. I mean, I'm very proud of our country for the man on the moon and the vaccines and all that. I'm proud of this country for all sorts of things. But the hot dog bun? Just think about that, man. That is amazing. So I will leave you with that. So somewhere, in honor of how great this country is, plant a flag somewhere today. Water it daily. Watch it grow. Don't water the flag. I mixed up a couple of things there. Plant a tree. Plant a tree tomorrow. Today, plant a flag in honor of our country and the hot dog bun. And I will see you tomorrow.